This is the Global News on Equa Television International. Our top stories: United Nations Yemen envoy shows new truce may be agreed. Nepal plane crash searchers repel, fly drones to find last passengers. Europe awakens to the Russian agent threat of sabotage. Pressure mounts on Germany as Ukraine needs faster arms supplies. And China's GDP sinks to 3% in 2022, second lowest in 50 years. According to the United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen, the prospects of a renewed truce in Yemen have grown as regional and international diplomatic activity to end the country's 8-year conflict deepens. Hans Grodenberg, addressing a United Nations Security Council briefing on Monday, more than 3 months after an initial truce pact expired, said there had been a potential step change in the conflict's trajectory, though the situation remained complex and fluid. Grönberg, a Swedish diplomat, has served in his position since 2021, urged the warring parties to work towards a shared vision with concrete steps to restore peace to the Arab world's poorest nation. The United Nations-backed truce originally took effect in April 2022 and raised hopes for a longer pause in fighting, but it ended on October 2nd, after just 6 months after the Houthi rebels who control the capital, Sana'a, and much of northern Yemen refused to agree to a further extension. Along with a stop to the fighting, last year's truce deal permitted some fuel shipments into Houthi-held Houthi ports and commercial flights from Sana'a, but it did not lift a partial Houthi blockade on the central city of Taiz, a primary goal for the government. Despite the absence of a truce extension, fighting has not escalated. The United Nations is now pushing for an extended and broader deal encompassing a mechanism to pay public sector wages. The Iran-allied Houthis and the Saudi-backed Yemeni government disagree on who should be paid, however, with the government saying that payments should only be made to those in Houthi-controlled areas serving as civil servants before the Houthi take over. The Houthis want the payments to be made according to the payrolls they have updated. They seized Sana'a and much of northern Yemen in 2014, eventually forcing the government into exile. A Saudi-led coalition, including the United Arab Emirates military, intervened in 2015 to try to restore the internationally recognized government to power, launching an airstrike campaign. Over 150,000 people have been killed, including 14,500 civilians. Searchers have deployed drones to search for 2 passengers still unaccounted for after Nepal's deadliest plane crash in 30 years, which killed almost 70 people. Some rescuers rappelled down the 200-meter, 656-foot deep valley in search of the missing passengers. On Monday, searchers found 2 more bodies. Before the search was called off because of the fading light, footages showed of some weeping relatives waiting for the bodies of their loved ones outside a hospital where autopsies are being conducted in Pokhara. Searchers yesterday found the cockpit's voice recorder and flight data recorder from the flight both in good condition, a discovery that is expected to help investigators determine what caused the crash. Under international aviation rules, the crash investigation agencies of the countries where the plane and engines were designed and built are automatically part of the inquiry. Average true-range ATR is based in France, and the plane's engines were manufactured in Canada by Pratt & Whitney Canada. French and Canadian air accident investigators have said they plan to be part of the inquiry. On the Russia-Ukraine crisis, experts say suspicion has fallen on Russia over a series of confirmed or apparent acts of sabotage and espionage that took place late last year in Western Europe, with European countries progressively taking measures in response. The acts came after 2 events that hurt Russian interest. In September, explosions in the Baltic Sea put Russia's Nord Stream gas pipelines to Germany out of use. The Kremlin blamed the damage on the United Kingdom without evidence. Ukraine and Poland blamed Russia but also provided no evidence. On October 7th, the Kerch Strait Bridge was bombed, interrupting Moscow's ability to supply Russian-annexed Crimea. An attack Russia blamed on Ukraine's military intelligence. It may have been a coincidence, but the day after the Kerch Bridge bombing, trains across northern Germany ground to a stop after cables that enabled train drivers to communicate were sabotaged. 2 days later, the Danish island of Bornholm was plunged into darkness after the undersea cable that supplies it with electricity from Sweden was severed. And also on October 19th, internet cables were severed in the south of France at 3 locations simultaneously. Cloud security company Scala said the cable cords were severed digital highways connecting Marseille with Lyon, Barcelona and Milan had impacted major cables with connectivity to Asia, Europe, US and potentially other parts of the world. Internet service provider Free posted photographs of data cables severed inside their buried concrete houses, calling the event an act of vandalism. France had a similar attack in April. During the same month, Norway's domestic security authorities said they were investigating suspicious instances of drones being flown near airfields and energy infrastructure. And in December, Lithuania reported a surge in unauthorized drone flights over military sites. Western and Ukrainian officials are piling pressure on Germany to approve the transfer of heavy battle tanks to Ukraine, with United Kingdom Defense Minister Ben Wallace saying the step could unlock support from other nations ahead of a United States-hosted meeting later this week to discuss further military support to Kyiv. On Monday, the appeals came as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also insisted on the need for faster weapons deliveries in the wake of a Russian missile attack that killed almost 40 people in an apartment block in the east-central city of Dnipro. Ukraine has so far primarily rallied on Soviet-era T-72 tank variants, and defense analysts say Western-made battle tanks will provide Ukrainian forces with better protection and more accurate firepower. But some of Kyiv's allies have so far resisted sending heavier weaponry to Ukraine amidst worries such moves could drag them more directly into the war with Russia. Germany has said that its Leopard 2 tanks, regarded as among the West's best, should only be supplied to Ukraine if there is an agreement among Kyiv's main allies. However, speaking in the UK Parliament, Wallace said Berlin will not be acting alone if it supplies only its own tanks. His government has promised to send 14 British-made Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine. In Berlin, visiting Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki also urged Germany to act quickly. On business and economy, according to government data, China's economy grew 3% in 2022, one of the weakest performances in the country's modern history. The Chinese economy expanded 2.9% during the final quarter, slowing from 3.9% growth during the July-September period, National Bureau of Statistics figures showed on Tuesday. Excluding 2020, the Chinese economy in 2022 had its weakest performances since 1976, the final year of Mao Zedong's 3-decade rule. China's government had set a goal of 5.5% growth before dropping the target from official announcements amidst worsening economic conditions. Still, the fourth quarter growth came significantly ahead of some economists' expectations. Casanova said, however, that the U.S. official statistics contained warning signs for long-term growth, including the first official decline in the population since 1961. China's strict zero-COVID pandemic policy weighed heavily on the world's second-largest economy towards the end of last year, with lockdowns hobbling economic activity in major industrial centers, including Shanghai and Guangzhou. Beijing made an abrupt shift away from the strategy last month after unprecedented mass protests across the country. China earlier this month reopened its borders following 3 years of international isolation after earlier scrapping most of its draconian restrictions. The country's reopening has been followed by a rise in infections that has overwhelmed hospitals, crematoriums and morgues. Health authorities have reported closely 60,000 COVID deaths since early December, although professionals outside the country and international experience suggest the actual death toll is likely to be far higher. Alicia Gracia Herrero, chief economist for Asia Pacific at Naxos, said she expects China's economy to see modest growth in the first quarter of this year. On more stories, China's population declines for first time in over 60 years. China's population has decreased for the first time in over 60 years. Official data shows a historic turn for the world's most populous nation that is now anticipated to see a long period of population decline. The country of 1.4 billion has seen birth rates plunge to record lows as its workforce ages, a drop that analysts warn could stymie economic growth and pile pressure on the country's strained public finances. The mainland Chinese population stood at approximately 1,411,750,000 at the end of 2022. Beijing's National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) reported on Tuesday a decrease of 850,000 from the end of the previous year. The number of births was 9.56 million, the NBS said, while the number of deaths stood at 10.41 million. Men also continue to outnumber women in China by 722.06 million to 686.69 million. The new figures mark the first fall in China's population since 1961, when the country battled the worst famine in its modern history caused by the Mao Zedong's disastrous agricultural policy known as the Great Leap Forward. China has long been the world's most populous nation, but is expected to soon be taken over by India if it has not already. Estimates put India's population at more than 1.4 billion. Kang Yi, the head of the NBS, said people should not worry about China's population decline as the country's overall labor supply still exceeds demand. Though China ended its strict one-child policy in 2016 and in 2021 allowed couples to have 3 children, the policy change has not reversed the demographic decline. In the long term, United Nations experts believe China's population could reduce by 109 million by the year 2050, more than triple the decline of their previous forecast in 2019. Indonesian police on trial over deadly stadium stampede. 3 police officers and 2 match officials have gone on trial in Indonesia charged with negligence over their suspected roles last year in the deaths of 135 people at a football match in East Java. They each face a maximum prison sentence of 5 years if convicted over the disaster, one of the world's worst stadium stampedes. The trial, which started on Monday, is being held via teleconference due to security concerns, said court spokesperson Agung Pranata. The disaster happened last October after police fired tear gas inside the Kanjuruhan Stadium in Malang, where fans had run onto the pitch after Arema FC, the home team, lost. There were no supporters from rival Persebaya Surabaya because of prior crowd trouble. Amidst the clouds of smoke, panicked people rushed for the exits, some of which were locked. Police described the pitch invasion as a riot and said 2 officers were killed, but survivors accused them of overreacting. An investigation team set up by the Indonesian President Joko Widodo amid national outrage over the death settled that the tear gas was the major cause of the crowd rise. It said police on duty had no knowledge that the use of tear gas was banned as a crowd control measure at football matches and used it indiscriminately at stadium to rush to escape. An investigation by the officers had given clear instructions to their subordinates to fire tear gas. In Africa, Equatorial Guinea dissident dies in prison. A prominent dissident in Equatorial Guinea has died in prison while serving a 60-year jail sentence, his group said. Julio Obama Mufeman, 51, who was also a Spanish citizen and was taken from South Sudan in a suspected kidnapping in 2019, died in Oveng Azem prison in the eastern city of Mongomo, the MLGE 3R movement said. It gave no date for Obama Mufeman's death, but accused the country's hardline government of torture. The MLGE 3R stands for the Movement for the Liberation of the Third Equatorial Guinea and is based in Spain, the Central African state's former colonizer. On Monday, Equatorial Guinea's Foreign Minister Simeon Oyono Esono Ang said Obama Mufeman died in a Mongomo hospital following illness but refuted any accusation of torture. A spokesman for the Spanish Foreign Ministry confirmed the death but declined to give details. Andres Osono Ondo, head of the Convergence for Social Democracy, Equatorial Guinea's only authorized opposition party, published a tweet in which he condemned Julio Obama's death in prison. He called for an international inquiry to clarify what happened and ensure that all prisoners have the right to family visits. Ondo took part in presidential election on Monday. Obi, who took over 15 questions from the audience after his elucidation paper on various sectors, said they will dismantle the structure of criminality which they have been using to hold the country down, stating that there will be no sacred cow under the Obidati administration, the Labour Party presidential candidate said that our objective is to dismantle the structures of criminality and enthrone competence, character and capability so that talents and ideas can flourish. On how he intends to cope with possibly having a National Assembly that may be dominated by other parties, Obi said he went through such experience as governor of Anambra State when none of the 30 members of the State of Assembly came from his political party, adding that what reasonable Nigerians, including Igbos, the Biafra War ended 53 years ago, but he is not oblivious of the agitators' demands for justice. On how to attract investors to Nigeria, which was asked by a former British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Paul Okwaright, Obi likened what he intends to do to attract investors to bee and honey, saying he will create an enabling environment where rule of law thrives and will avoid any transactional policies which breeds corruption and weakens governance. On security, he said it will be his top priority because everything will be done to secure the environment, and he will do this by first turning the country into production and pulling people out of poverty and adequately utilizing the military. Obi noted, and I quote, "Our military once secured Africa and they should secure Nigeria and will provide the needed leadership and political will." Atiku Tinubu campaigns trade words over who steps down. 38 days to general elections, the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council, APC-PCC, has restated its call for the presidential candidate of the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, to quit the contest over, even as the PDP yesterday demanded the arrest of the APC presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. At a press conference in Abuja, the council said Atiku Abubakar must stand down over his role in an alleged infraction recently publicized by a whistleblower, Mr. Michael Akimugu. Director of Public Affairs and Chief Spokesperson Festus Keyamo San maintained that Atiku lacks moral latitude to occupy the exalted seat of the presidency following his alleged role in the saga. Meanwhile, PDP declared that the information of a uniformed squad by the APC codenamed Jagaban Army is a treasonable act. Consequently, the party called for the arrest and questioning of Tinubu. In a statement by the Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Organization, PDP claimed that the Jagaban Army set up to disrupt the 2023 general elections and raid polling units for votes on behalf of APC presidential candidate is a direct affront to the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies, as well as an assault on the sovereignty of our nation. Spokesperson of the Atiku Okowa campaign, Kola, who signed the statement, said it is reprehensible that Tinubu can create a rogue force just for the purposes of undermining the electoral and security arrangements of our nation. The council claimed that Atiku and his former principal, President Olusegun Obasanjo, breached the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, committed the offences of conspiracy, criminal breach of trust and money laundering over their role in a marine float account. According to the PDP, the notion of a Jagaban army is deployed to bring hoodlums, thugs and gangsters together under the cover of the APC and turn them into an official militia that will be used to unleash mayhem on the day of election. Still on the news, Emefiele has removed of office and the policy direction of President Muhammadu invaded the CBN's office. CBN, Mr. Osita Wani-Sobi, explained that Emefiele, who preceded on leave in December 2022, resumed work, oath of office and the policy direction of President Muhammadu Buhari. On his part, the Public Relations Officer, DSS, Dr. Peter Afunaya, in a statement yesterday stated that, and I quote, "The attention of the DSS has been drawn to the false news making the round that its operatives invaded the Central Bank of Nigeria and arrested its governor today, 16th of 1st, 2023. This is fake news and quite misleading." On business and economy, inflation in Nigeria eases to 21.34% in December 2022. The headline inflation rate in Nigeria decelerated for the first time in 11 months to 21.34% in December 2022 compared to 21.47% recorded in November 2022. Data released on Monday by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, have shown food inflation has also slowed to 23.75% in December from 24.13%. The December 2022 inflation rate figure showed a decline of 0.13% when compared to November 2022 inflation rate. However, on a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 5.72% higher compared to the 15.63% recorded in December 2021. According to the MBS, this shows that the headline inflation rate increased in the month of December 2022 when compared to the same month in the preceding year, December 2021. The MBS stated that on a month-on-month basis, the percentage change in the all-times index in December 2022 was 1.71%, which was 0.32% higher than the 1.39% rate recorded in November 2022. And this means that in the month of December 2022, the general price level was 0.32% higher relative to November 2022. The percentage change in the average CPI for the 12 months ending December 2022 over the average of the CPI for the previous 12 months period was 18.85%, showing 1.89% increase compared to the 16.95% recorded in December 2022, the MBS further explained. And finally, on the news, ECWA Extraordinary General Church Council meeting, the Evangelical Church Winning All ECWA is holding an extraordinary meeting at the ECWA International Conference Hall, Jos. The program is scheduled to take place from the 16th to 19th of January 2023. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, who was represented by the former Speaker, House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, and his campaign team visited the extraordinary meeting at the ECWA International Conference Hall, Jos, Plateau State, seeing the significance of the church in winning the 2023 general election. In an interview with ECWA Television General Manager Engineer Tony J. Nakali, the speaker said the church is supposed to always lead the way and to show the light which the society will benefit from. It is not just for the believers, but also for unbelievers. He further stated that as Christian leaders, they cannot craft a platform they will benefit, but they will serve the common good for the benefit of humanity. He added that peace is key in bringing people together, especially when people in the north bring their sanity together. There will be enhancement in economic development. Speaking about the Muslim ticket, the speaker has this to say.
In view of the ticket the APC adopted, and in view of the fact that it doesn't speak well of us as a people who are in dear need to release our creative energies in order to bring ourselves together, it wasn't good for us, and all of us sat down and said, look, we as Christians cannot take this, but we have to unite around a platform that can comprehensively defeat this thing that we call a challenge for Nigeria, not just for Christians, but even for Muslims, because we need to bring ourselves together, Muslim Christians, to be able to build this nation. So all of us are convinced, not just them, there are so many of us, so many in the church. As a matter of fact, by taking this decision, we will be reuniting with our brothers who are already in the PDP, and you know them. It is not that we're inventing it, so that we can do what is common and what is good and what we believe would benefit us as individual members of the church and the church at large.
A recap of major stories says United Nations Yemen envoy shows new truce may be agreed. Nepal plane crash searches repel flight drones to find last passengers. Europe awakens to the Russian agent threat of sabotage. Pressure mounts on Germany as Ukraine needs faster arms supplies, and China's GDP sinks to 3% in 2022, second lowest in 50. News. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Sureki. Bye for now.